At the end of the day, if you have Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello in front of the net in overtime, you better find a way to win. But you can't go the first 30 minutes of the game without really showing up. We've got a lot to discuss in tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, as we have yet another Locked On Wild postcast for you here this evening on the back end of a 5-4 overtime loss for the Minnesota Wild to the Columbus Blue Jackets. That was, by and large, self-inflicted. The Wilds fell behind 2-0 in this game. They trailed 1-0 after one period. Then the Blue Jackets scored in the second to make it 2-0. You get goals from Dakota, Mermis, and Matt Zuccarello to tie the score at 2 apiece. Take the lead at 3-2, but then 2 goals by Columbus to make it 4-3. Marcus Johansson scores to tie it up. We go to OT, and the Wild had a couple of opportunities in OT. Columbus nearly ended it once and then did end it on a goal in 54 shots on net on Philip Gustafsson. And there's a lot to unpack from this game. First off, it was a pretty lifeless start from the Wild here tonight. And that is, I think, frustrating because of the fact that Columbus came into this game having just played last night, and they had all the jump, they had all the life. They really controlled a lot of the action here, especially through the first period and then into the second, and then at points throughout the rest of the game. Beyond that, just major issues for the Wild, even getting the puck out of their defensive zone. They struggle with clearing the puck out of the defensive zone, turnovers along the boards, turnovers in front of the net, just some careless play with the puck. And to kind of pivot off of that point before we dive any further, if you're going to be a team that is not going to be able to win the speed or the skill head to head, you have to be razor sharp in the details, in crisp passes up the ice, in making sure that you're looking where the puck is going to be able to see who you're passing it to, as opposed to simply kicking the puck behind you when you have your back turned. The level of just not really caring about what happens to the puck, which is leading to additional chances for opponents, is bad at this point in the season. And yes, it is 5 games in, but this is something that if you're going to be a team that relies on more physical play than speed and skill, you have to absolutely dominate in those detail areas. And this team just has not been able to do that through the early part of the season. They got carved in the faceoff circle here tonight. The power play had a couple of opportunities, but squandered way more. It's a team that just at this point just doesn't really have a sense of urgency as to getting going in these games. This is not the first time that this team has fallen behind early on in a game. It's happened pretty much every time this season, except against Florida, in which the Wild didn't give up a goal. I mean, they didn't trail against Montreal either, but in the games against Toronto, Los Angeles Kings, and tonight against Columbus, you fall behind in these games, and it just takes you forever to get back in and get that energy level up. And in front of the home team, that in front of the home fans, that kind of stuff just should not happen. And so it's frustrating because, again, you look at who you were playing. You're playing Columbus. They played last night. And so you should be able to use the fact that they theoretically have tired legs to your advantage. And it just, everything is just way harder than it needs to be. You end up hanging your goalie out to dry again because you can't get the puck out of your own end. And so, 54 shots in a game that had like a few minutes of overtime. I mean, Gustafsson faced 52 shots against the Dallas Stars in the postseason in 2 overtimes. You shouldn't be giving up that volume of shots to Columbus in a regulation game. And so all this stuff just leads to frustration. And then in overtime, you have Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello in front of the net, and there was a Columbus player in that area as well, but you don't even get a shot off. You're passing from one side of the net to the other, and if I had $1 for every pass tonight on the power play that went from one end of the zone to the other along the blue line, I would probably have enough money to buy the Xcel Energy Center outright. But it's stuff like that where you just are more focused on what's going on out on the perimeter than where your focus needs to be, which is at the net, going after and trying to get the puck past the goalie. A ton of the shots that the Wild took also came from outside tonight. And so, like, where do you want to dive in as to the kinds of things with this team that need to change and need to change quickly? Because there are more than a few things that need to be ironed up, or we're just going to continue to see this happen over and over and over again this season. So it's a game that frankly made me a little hot under the collar because, again, a lot of it is just self-inflicted. A lot of it is just passes and turnovers and plays that you don't need to be making. Simplify everything a little bit. And just like, instead of trying to get the pass from one zone to the other, how about you try for an intermediate target and just try to move it up the ice? It's a shame too, because we talked about it in the pregame. We saw a new line combination for the second line tonight with Pat Maroon, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Marcus Johansson. And by and large, they were excellent the entirety of the game. Pat Maroon legitimately fit with Eriksson Ek and Johansson here tonight. And so what it should be is you beat a team in Columbus, and then that can be the leadoff talking point. But instead, we're getting to it fifth or sixth thing down the list because of everything else that happens while we're out there, while we're watching on the ice. It was totally self-inflicted, and just like, here we go again. So we will get to your comments as we continue our Locked On Wild postcast. Want to get to what you have to say. So while we go through our sponsors, fill that comment section, light it up. If you've got some takes that you want to throw on the table, let us know. Put it in the comments, and we'll get to them here in just a second. But Minnesota Wild lose 5-4 in overtime to the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast after this. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped businesses secure working capital. From $5,000 to $1.5 million, Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. They invite the many entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL fans to learn more by calling them at 203-675-0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is also brought to you by Jase Medical. And with uncertainty in the world these days, from unrest in the Middle East to hurricane season, earthquakes, and more, there is no worse feeling than not knowing whether or not you are going to have access to life-saving medication you need. Jase Medical offers a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. Plus, you can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. If you have a family member that you're thinking of buying a Jase case for, but don't know which are going to be the for a $20 discount on your order. Again, go to jasemedical.com and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. Welcome back to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. The Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 5-4 in overtime to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now 2-1 on the season. Let's fire up the comments section. We'll start with Gary. The better team won. The Wild are mediocre and will not make the playoffs. Dean can't seem to get his team ready 5 games into the season. Coaching change is needed now. Well, I don't think we're going to get a change at this point in the season, but it is fair to wonder. These sorts of things continue to happen. And again, it's not the first time this season that the Wild have struggled to match the energy of their opponent, especially early on. And so it is a fair question to ask as to, where's the urgency? It's something that has not just been a new issue this year either. This was the case last year. This happened at points 2 years ago as well. The only difference is that 2 years ago, the offense seemed to always be able to answer back, whether it be empty net goals at the end of the game or just later on in the game. It's been a problem for a considerable amount of the last 2 seasons, especially, and it's got to change because, especially as you go up against better opponents. Edmonton on Tuesday, you can't fall behind to a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and expect to just get bailed out as the game goes on. And I know there were a couple of instances tonight. There was the Matt Zuccarello goal that was waved off by offsides. But again, this goes back to what happened in the game against the Los Angeles Kings, where you have some adversity in that goal that Pierre-Luc Dubois had that was reviewed but allowed to stand. But you can't just at that point say, oh no, what do we do? You have to move on from it and you have to continue to play. Next up, my biggest concern right now is the excessive amounts of shots that the Wild are allowing against Philip Gustafsson. Gus is a great goalie, but the Wild can't allow him to be torched every night he's in the net. Bingo. And that stems a lot from defensive zone turnovers. You can't expect a goalie to make a first, a second save, and then all of a sudden flip right back to going on defense because you turn the puck over in the defensive zone. You can't expect your goalie to be able to bail you out that many times. At some point, the goals just come. And so it's a concern. And again, I think that stems to being a detail-oriented team. And at this point, this team just is not. And that's something that they're going to need to get figured out as the season rolls along, and particularly soon, because it's happened every game this season so far where you've had turnovers that have either directly or indirectly led to a goal for the opponent. Michael notes with the cap problems and the signings of veterans, they look way too comfortable. Again, spot on with the lack of urgency to start games. The Wilds, when they got the goals from Mermis and from Zuccarello to tie it up at 2-2, the Blue Jackets immediately went back on the offensive. And I mean, you get outshot 22-6 in the second period at home. Like, come on. You just, that kind of thing just has to not happen. whether it's game 5 of the season or whether it's game 82. You have to meet that level of energy from your opponent. The Wild need to get back to heavy hitting, grindy defense. They can score. That's clear. Time to square things up on D, and then who knows? 100% spot on. And again, it's going to have to come from the forwards too, because we know what we have right now on defense. What you see is what you have. And so you can try to juggle the lines around again to try to see if that will help. But it's going to have to come from the forwards too. They're going to have to help out these defensemen because as of right now, it's not great. So that's going to have to be something that's addressed as well. The overpassing between Zuccarello and Kirill needs to stop. These guys got to be shellfish and shoot the dang puck, be in position for rebounds. Again, this stems to the end of the game. You got those two at the right in front of the net, and you don't get a shot. You don't get a shot off. Matt says, my biggest concern is getting Boldy and Spurgeon healthy. Until this team is bad at full strength, I'm not too concerned. And yes, not having Spurgeon and Boldy in the lineup is a factor. But again, we're playing Columbus tonight without Patrick Laine. You don't think he makes a difference in the lineup for the Blue Jackets? But they had the jump all night. They had more energy, and as a result, they got the win. And so it's that kind of stuff that has to be changed. The fact that Boldy and Spurgeon are out, you can't, regardless of who's in the lineup, you can't have just the lax play while you're out there on the ice. Michael notes, even though Zuccarello had the one waved off, he shot twice, and look what happened. Yeah, shoot the puck. I mean, I know people kind of hear that and they roll their eyes because people scream it in the stands, but look at the power play tonight. Too many instances in which they were just passing on the perimeter, especially at the top of the zone, and not taking shots. You got to get a shot on net. If you don't shoot, in NHL history, in the history of the NHL, no team has scored a game when they don't shoot. You just can't, unless a team gifts you an own goal, which there almost was one of those tonight. You have to shoot, and you have to shoot the puck. Glenn looks at the contracts for Foligno, Zuccarello, Gaudreau, and Hartman. I thought Zuccarello was good for the most part tonight. He was shooting the puck up until the end of the game, and so that third line is a line that should just we need to get a little more from that third line here as the season unfolds. And I'm not going to go down that road yet, but you just need to see in those critical moments, guys step up and shoot the puck. Matt, again, on the OT, if they aren't going to shoot, they need to play that puck back to the point. I mean, yeah, probably, but also at the end of the day, they're right in front of the net. Right in front of the net. I mean, you just have to get it on the net. And then Trav to sign it off. The Wild aren't that good. Put Mojo at 1C. First line is fair game at this point. And the third line, I think, as well. So I don't know if we see a swap between those two. Honestly, I thought Eriksson Ek, Maroon, and Johansson were really, really good tonight. So I'm fine with giving them another look. Beyond that, and again, the fourth line had some good moments too. Beyond that, I'm all for some changes. We'll see, because guess what? Now you get Edmonton. And if you don't think they're mad about how their season has started, Just wait and see. So that's what's coming up on Tuesday night. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. As unfortunately the Minnesota Wild come up short tonight by a score of 5-4 in OT. We'll have a full breakdown for you coming up on Monday, as well as some special guests lining up throughout the week. So make sure to tune in. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any Locked On Wild content throughout the rest of the season. You can find new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.